This breakdown. I said, whose life is this? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, whose life are you living? She said, mine. I said, right. And then she thought about it. I said, yeah. If you're feeling that way, a fight can draw that to you, but love overcomes that. What is love? And we went into that a little bit. I said, now I know you've deviated earlier in your life, but understand that's not your fault. You're a good person. I said, yeah, your personality, because she was kind of sassy, you know, and kind of calloused in certain ways. I said, but that's a program. That's part of the conditioning that you had because you were disconnected from these things. That can change in an instant. Your belief that you should be bitchy here and not there, and you know, have this belief about people, and that all can change in an instant. She got it. This is why I like to talk to people in person, to be led to talk to people in person. You just can't quite do it on the internet. It's not the same as a fluid, alive interaction. You know, you look at me, I'm possessed by how many entities? Some would call them demons. Could the demon screw with my mind during that? Maybe 2 years ago. But see, if my intentions are good, meaning if my intention is out of the appreciation and love for the creative spirit of everything, and I understand the maintenance and its intent, the demon can't interfere with that. It knows that. It can't. Because love is too powerful. When I see the sparkle in her eyes, because she was getting it. She was getting it, and this was not a very long conversation. It was so psychic. When we started talking about her psychic ability, I said, well, there are different types of psychic. You understand how I explained the guy in front of the gas station in that conversation, right? She said, yeah. I said, okay. Well, think of it like this. Imagine you and, say, one of your girlfriends back in high school. It was a Friday night, and it was a Friday, and maybe you wanted to get alcohol for that night or something, and you were planning on doing that. And then one of your teachers walks up, and you both are talking about getting alcohol, and then the teacher walks up, and you're like, oh, hi, Mrs. So-and-so. She's like, hi, girls. How are you doing? Oh, we're doing fine, blah, blah, blah. You obviously stopped talking about getting the alcohol, right? And then your friend says, okay, well, I'm going to take off. I'll get those concert tickets tonight. And for a second, you're like, concert ticket? Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Why'd you say that? Of course, because you don't want the teacher to know you're going to get alcohol. So because of the context, because you both knew what you were talking about, it was easy for you to infer that the concert tickets meant the alcohol because you weren't talking about concert tickets. She said, okay, yeah, I get that. I said, yeah, everybody has done that. You know, it's just that way of changing the symbol or word that you're using, just changing the meaning that you apply to it because you have an understanding. I said, well, if you're psychic, and what has happened to me is, if you go up a few levels from that, that type of thing is in real time and ongoing. This is how the Illuminati communicate. Imagine if you're psychic, you still speak, sure, but through psychic understanding, you can change things up. And to the conscious observer of your conversation who isn't psychically communicating, they have no idea what you're talking about. But if you're psychic with each other, you can keep changing what things mean and seem to be talking about something else, but really you're changing the symbolism for the words that you use from moment to moment. You just know. I know this because I've experienced it. And she got it. A Walmart employee in the United States of America smiled. And she gave me a smile with this kind of squint in the eyes like, I get this. I know what you're saying. It helped her because she's had a lot of psychic experiences. But she didn't really know how to put it together in her head. And I'm telling you, it doesn't take very long if you know what you're talking about and you follow the intent of the creation spirit. It knows what to have you say. And that's how you do it. That's how it works. That's how psychic people kind of talk to each other. The ones in the elite, that's what they do. And I laughed with her because I said, you know, it's funny, isn't it? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, humans go around calling themselves superior. And they're the only animal on this planet that isn't utilizing this. And there are some people that are so simple-minded that if you opened up their mind to this, they'd freak out. And animals, even the most simplistic animals, use this every day. I said, how do you think animals find their way around? How do you think a lost animal finds its way home? The superior human says, I don't understand that. How do they find their way home? How does a butterfly make it from South America to Canada? And the butterfly's brain is tiny. It doesn't memorize all of that stuff. It's utilizing the cues from moment to moment with the guidance of the larger scalar reality. And it's funny because humans can be traumatized by opening up to this at first. It's almost hilarious because what popped into my head was like, I don't know why this popped into my head, but this old movie called Amazon Women from the Moon, and you just have to see it to know what it is. But there's a scene with William Shatner where he's on the lunar base, and there's all these lights, and they're beeping and flashing, right? And he's trying to talk to whoever's on the communicator with him, and yes, and things are going okay here on the moon, but I gotta tell you, these lights are just beeping, flashing, and beeping, and flashing, and beeping, and flashing. It's driving me crazy. And it's kind of like that, because people that aren't aware of this, when they open up to it, all these anchors are being given to them in direct response to their thoughts. Everywhere you go, people are like touching their nose. You know, you look around, they're grabbing their earlobe, all these little signs, they're clearing their throat in response to your thoughts. You know, that type of thing. Next thing you know, everybody around you's doing that in response to you. And it's funny, but you gotta go through it. But it is funny, because it happens all the time. But it's not that you're dreaming everybody up. It's that you're all components of something larger. The beauty is you'll have your conscious experience of that. Like I told her, I said, you know, this is what's happening. I was guided to you to make you understand certain things in your life. You're psychic. I was to guide you on how to understand that a little bit. That your fight right now is unimportant and needs to be resolved. That your nervous breakdown's over. I said, when was your nervous breakdown? She said, well, today at work. I said, well, that's already in the past. She looked at me. I said, well, why are you upset now? Well, because people were so mean to me. Were? Yeah. Yeah, but it's only right now. And it's one thing to maybe hear that on tape. It's another thing to have the eye contact, the energy. See, our energy bonded like a covalent bond between two atoms in that moment. So we had the exchange of intent, and I was able to communicate with her. And that was it. Then I said, okay, I mean, so you understand that? She said, yeah. And she was just smiling, and you could see her whole state had been changed. All kinds of questions answered for her in just like a half an hour, not even a half an hour. And I said, okay, nice meeting you. Bye. And she smiled and rolled up her window, and bye. Everything changed. What really happened? We're both parts to something larger, and it directed me to her for that reason. Now, my conscious mind also had its own experience of that. A conversation with a girl, we got to philosophize about this, explain a few things, you know, but there were many other things happening in that conversation that my conscious mind was unaware of, that her conscious mind was unaware of, but her state was evidence of it. The way she felt by the end of it was the evidence of all the things happening. Energy and all kinds of things I would have been unaware of. And that's beautiful. It's beautiful because that was the spirit maintaining itself. That's all. Okay? And if you haven't figured it out yet, this is how they extracted neuro-linguistic programming, by the way. It's funny, I get people that send me messages and say, boy, it sounds like you must have studied up on neuro-linguistic programming.